So I started off making a lot of realism. So my artistic journey started with me just trying to master my technique. And I was doing a lot of things like this. So this is a pencil drawing
Wow,
of a
that's
homeless.
for that looks like a photograph. That's all from just a number two pencil.
It's well, not number two. There's a few like different types of pencils. So there's some darker ones like 2B, 3B, like all those. And yeah, so this is what I started off by doing. This was right when I finished high school. I did this piece of a homeless man. It has some gel pen also. So I was doing a lot of pencil portraits and I got really into realism.
Are these real people?
Yeah.
Wow.
And let's see, I was also doing murals in acrylic. So it was a lot of like realistic stuff. And then I started training with Disney to be an Imagineer. So they're the
Oh, wow.
people that imagine the theme parks and create them. So I learned a lot of my acrylic skills through them. And I was doing a lot of murals like this. This is of Dubai and Italy.
That's pretty cool.
This was while I was working on Mount Fuji.
Mm,
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of stuff like that. This is another pencil drawing with an acrylic background. So it's like a little bit of a mixed media.
yeah.
But was working a lot with medicines and especially DMT. And I really wanted to create these visions. So I left Disney and I started to focus on my visionary art full time. This is a work in progress. And I started creating the pieces that I'm known for now mostly, such as these. So I'll go through some. So this one's called True Reflections, and it's about when we look deeply at who we really are, we see the infinite, that we are the infinite.
Uh,
So that's an infinity mirror with eyes. Eyes represent consciousness or awareness. So becoming aware that we are the infinite, that is who we truly are.
that's trippy.
Um, yeah.
Mm,
This one's called Crystal Palace. And I saw this vision on LSD while listening to my favorite song by Ravi Shankar. And yeah, it took me to this realm of crystals and all these beautiful beings.
what was the
This is
song?
it was Shanti Mantra. So it's
Mm,
a song about peace. And this one's called The Actor Behind the Masks. So as we can see here, we have a bunch of masks of different beings, so people and animals. And it's supposed to be a portrait of kind of like the actor behind all the acts.
I like it.
This is a piece called The Infinite Self and the Wheel of Life. So it's a spin-off of the Tibetan Wheel of Life, if any of you are familiar with it. And this is like the infinite self or the part of ourselves that's infinite.
Yeah, there's so many elements to it.
This one's called Envision. So there's a bunch of like stuff here in the smoke that it's
Oh
turning
yeah.
into. And all these pieces, so the way I create my pieces is they're mixed media. So what I do is I kind of created this new way of making art where I really loved painting acrylics like I used to do with murals and stuff, but I also really love digital art. I love the vibrance and the I don't know, like it reminded me a lot of the DMT realms and a lot of psychedelics, a lot of the visions I was getting. So I decided that instead of picking one, I was going to merge the two.
Mm,
But there's a lot of artists that just simply print out their digital art and then paint on it. But I wanted to create a deeper fusion. So what I did is I created the sandwich method where I worked back and forth between the two mediums where I'll scan it and then I'll paint on it and then I'll work digitally again and then print it out and paint on it again to create a true fusion of the two mediums where
mm,
you can't really tell where one ends, the other one starts.
yeah.
You can mostly see it in person, it has this interesting texture and depth. So I just got really creative with how the art is made itself. But the finished pieces are on canvas. So these are,
Wow.
this one's about the board game of existence.
Is that a DMT molecule?
It is, yes, yes. It's
Wow.
actually spotted in a lot of my artworks. This one's called Return to Source. So it's like, returning to source energy. This is one of my latest pieces, Shiva, which is 6 feet. Let me see if I have a photo of me next to it. So here you can see me next to it. It's very large. Now it has a frame. This is where I was working on it live at Tipper and Friends in Swanee, Florida. Here's next to Kali. So they kind of go together. So we've got Kali and Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
Kali is 5.5 feet. So she's a little wider, but a little shorter. But they're both, about the same size approximately. You can see Shiva again with its gold frame.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Thanks. So this is actually one of my most popular pieces, ironically. Legalized. Yes, I made this piece and it's slightly different from most of my other art, but I got this vision. I felt inspired to do it in this kind of like poster style. Yeah, and I ended up sharing it and went all over the internet, and yeah, now it's spotted in a lot of cities. A lot of people made stickers and posters of it. So I wasn't expecting it to become as big as it did. But most of my pieces have this.
That's pretty cool. I like that one.
Which one? This one?
The pyramid. Well, I like all of them, but the pyramid was cool.
Thanks. This one's called Going Home. So it's a little bit inspired by the quote by Ram Dass, where we're all just walking each other home. And it's about kind of going up the levels of consciousness to return to pure consciousness.
Yeah, that's
source.
Awesome. All right, so where does this all come from? That's pretty cool too.
Thanks. This is a collab with
I'm gonna say that to everyone. Oh wow. Oh, for anyone that's just listening right now to the audio, they're like, what is she showing him right now? I feel like, yeah, anyone that's just listening to the audio should fast forward a few minutes. They're just here in the description, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, or check out the video so they can see the art.
Check it out on YouTube. Exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of these pieces are inspired by various vision methods. So I work with a variety of methods, such as medicines, hypnosis, meditation, lucid dreaming. Really, the list goes on. And the more I've worked with these over the years, the more I get visions at any moment. So I'll be like doing dishes and all of a sudden I'll get like a strong vision for an artwork. I think that's kind of like a muscle that if we develop, it comes through more and more.
So do you do like quick sketches when you're
Yes.
in the visionary state? Or is it like something that you just kind of, you hold in your mind and you take it with you after you're in the quote unquote state of mind?
Usually right after. So I'll get the vision, and usually at the visions, they vary. I think some people think that visions have to be very, very intense, which sometimes they are. Such as, if we're on a heavy plant medicine, it can be very intense. But sometimes visions are also very faint, and there's still visions, such as, if I tell someone to think of a red apple, they're seeing a red apple in their mind's eye right now, but it's nothing super intense. And everything in between. So sometimes it's about being very aware and still making space to observe the faint visions. I'm gonna stop sharing these artworks now and just go back to camera. Okay, so sometimes the visions are very faint, and I still honor those by sketching them out. So usually during the moment where I'm receiving the vision, it will either be very strong, where I'm just fully consumed by it for a second, and I'm just like, whoa, like, okay, trying to remember and see and feel as much detail as possible. Or sometimes they're very faint, and I'll actually try to be very quiet and still and like really zoom into it and like still like visualize it, even if it's faint. And then after I've kind of gave it my full attention, I'll go and I'll sketch it out, which I think it's what really helps me receive more visions, is kind of honoring even the small ones by writing them down, taking the moment to acknowledge them. I feel like it sends almost like a message to cosmic creativity that I am open to receiving these visions, that I'm paying attention, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as almost like a channel, like a visual channel? Like some people, they channel other entities and they literally do monologues. You're like a channel that is sort of like that adheres to our visionary aspect, like literally. Like,
Yes. Yes, for sure, channel, but we gotta ask like a channel of what, because I try to not be just a channel for anything, I'm very specifically trying to be a channel for whatever will raise the consciousness of the collective, for visions that promote peace and happiness, and ideally awakening, that kind of thing. So sometimes some visionary artists, it varies. There's some visionary artists that focus on darker realms, and that's what they enjoy. But I try to only focus on creating that higher realm kind of visions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Channel of love, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's what it's all about. I like it. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's like
Thanks.
some of those are like, and you've gotten this probably before. It's like they're, how do I put this, man? It's like I've seen those before, and like you're recreating things that I have or other people have seen. It's
Yes.
not just you. It's like this kind of like you're creating like archetypes.
Yeah, and tapping into these deep realms that I feel like we can all access through altered states of consciousness. May that be deep in meditation, or through dreams, or through the spirit molecule, various techniques. I feel like this isn't, just purely my experiences, but even the more I create this artwork, the more I meet people that tell me that they've been to that same place, they've seen that exact same thing. So I try to just go in there and see those beautiful places, which, can't be photographed, because we can only access them directly through our inner travels. And then to document them, to bring them through the physical, where people that have had these experiences also can, have this artifact that they can remember and enjoy that space again. Like, let's say they had a very special spiritual experience, seeing something specific, then they can be reminded of it on their daily life, so that they can hold on to that message. Because sometimes these experiences, they fade. We have them and then we forget, or we get, caught up in the cosmic game again in daily life.
Yeah.
And instead to have that visual reminder of, oh, this reminded me that we're all one, that we're love, of source, that kind of thing. That's why I try to bring them through, so it can serve them like that. And for the people that haven't accessed those realms yet, to maybe start tapping into them. They can meditate on them, start trying to, explore those places.
I see. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Like, how does this enable one to awaken to a higher state of consciousness? Well, you kind of just answered it there. It's a reminder. And I like that, because we all need to be reminded that, like you said, we're all in this crazy cosmic game of chaos. But if we have whatever it is, could be your artwork, it could be like a statue, whatever, a totem, something, whatever you got to do to remind yourself that you have that divine essence, whatever it is. I think that's what we need to do here in this age, this dark age of Kali Yuga, is to forever just keep reminding yourself that no matter what, you are of this essence. So I guess that is that your main message, through your artwork, to just remind and inspire others?
Yeah, it's my main message is that the divine is within us, and to tap into the part of ourselves that is infinite, the infinite part of ourselves, and remember that divinity. And when we remember that, we can embody it and implement it into daily life in different ways. For some people, it might be smiling more, or smiling to a stranger. For some people, if they're an engineer, maybe it's building something that helps the world. Or if they're, whatever their particular gift is, if they're embodying that infinite part, that divinity, they can use it to help the world. So it's about, reminding people of that.
beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, what more do you want? It's a very challenging task. How long have you
Yeah.
been on this? Like, I know you said you started off doing like realistic stuff, but how long have you been doing the visionary stuff?
Visionary stuff, let's see, maybe like 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, technically it's kind of like vague of where I really started because since a young age I was creating some visionary art, but not sharing it, or it'd be like one sprinkled in a bunch of like realistic artworks. So, but I would say it largely had to do with my use of DMT. So I had used ayahuasca quite a few times before, but it wasn't until I actually consumed the like just the pure crystal that it really shook me. That I was like, wow, like I really need to be focusing on making spiritual art. Like if I'm gonna be creating images that affect people's consciousness, why not focus on creating artworks about these realms that raise the consciousness? And of course, that's not my only inspiration at this point. I have many forms of inspiration, but that was a huge catalyst for me switching from making all sorts of other art to specifically just visionary art.
Yeah. What else did that do other than like change your trajectory of your creation? How would you describe what that did to your being? How would you describe how DMT changed the Juliana that we see?
So I work with DMT quite a lot. It's definitely my favorite medicine, and I think it's just so beautiful and healing for the soul. But it's deeper than just creating art to raise the consciousness. It's about me realizing that my mission here on earth is to do whatever I can to raise the consciousness. And there's so many ways of doing that. And I feel like I've tried to expand more than just artworks. I try to write poems and make videos about, spiritual topics. And simpler than that, it's just about holding a certain vibration in daily life when, someone's upset or, things are going crazy, like being that pillar of peace in daily life, trying to embody that as best as I can. None of us are perfect. Or, holding a smile, like, smiling to strangers, or while I'm doing dishes, just smiling to myself and cultivating that peace, and sharing it with others and inspiring others to cultivate that also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a life of service.
Yeah.
Even in the smallest things, just a life of serving another.
Yep.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how psychedelics do that? They make us, to anyone that doesn't know any better and they think of the woes of the drug war and the propaganda that surrounded it, one can just think it's somebody just trying to escape or just trying to get high. But when used in a responsible manner, in a respective manner to the medicine, it makes one a better person in their quote unquote sober life. It's so
Most
interesting.
definitely. Most definitely. And I go through periods where I don't do psychedelics for a really long time, but the lessons they have given me, I continue to implement them as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about love.
Yes.
It's really all about love.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to ask. It's all about love. That's all you gotta know.
I feel like that's all the answer in psychedelics trips. Like,
Yeah.
it's always like love. Love is always
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can have these very ecstatic visionary states and go to these very far off realms, it seems, but we always come back home. And then it's like, well, what am I gonna do when I'm home? There's no other choice but to love, right? At least that's how
Yeah.
I see it. There's no other choice because from what I've seen and the messages that I get from these psychedelic states, and I haven't even done psychedelics in a long time, actually. It's probably been like over a year, but like I hold those sessions and experiences in high regard from what they showed me, just from going through that 4 to 6 hour experience, whatever it was. I brought it back into this, like I said, sober life to become a better person. And for that, like I always highly revere those things. It's something, and even if I wanted to try and forget the states of mind that I went to, I couldn't. There's no way. There's simply no way that you can forget something so extraordinary like a psychedelic experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about implementing for sure. Like, I think that's where the real magic of psychedelics come. It's not about doing them every day or every couple days. I mean, there is microdosing, but like, it's really, I don't feel like that's the point. Maybe for some people it might help them, but ultimately, I think it's more about taking that beautiful experience and then spending months sober trying to implement it to really integrate what it has taught us.
Because life is the trip.
Yeah, so it is the ultimate trip,
It
for sure.
It really is.
Yeah, and for people that psychedelics that are listening, I'm not saying they're necessary. It has helped me in my journey, and I'm sure many others, but I feel like these altered states of consciousness can also be accessed through different methods, such as very deep meditation or hypnosis or lucid dreaming. We can access also these spiritual realms. I feel like, if anything, psychedelics are just like a little boat taking us to that island of higher consciousness, but we can swim there on our own. We don't need anything else, like these are tools that might make them happen a little faster, but if you're dedicated, you can make it happen on your own without the use of anything.
Yeah, and as Terrence McKenna would say, he has a story like that. Same thing with the boat. Maybe where you even got it from. The boat's only 5 cents. It was about a story, a paraphrase, about a guy that's bragging about getting to the other side of the river. He swam across, and he was kind of like bragging about how he got to the other shore. And then his friend was like, yeah, man, but the boat's only 5 cents. In other words, he was referring to psychedelics, like pretty much what you just described. It's only 5 cents. It's really easy. But yeah, you're right. It's the same destination in the end. And it's really about the intention about becoming a better human being, ideally, to other people. Yeah. Spread the love.
For sure.
So what are your other modalities? I guess, we talked about psychedelics enough, but do you have a regular meditation practice, yoga?
Yeah, I do. So I practice various forms of yoga. I know a lot of people, when they think of yoga, they think of the stretching moves, which is asanas, which is definitely a great part of yoga, but there's also other forms like bhakti yoga, and yoga just means union. But I have a regular meditation practice. I feel like, if anything, that is my core. Like, I feel like in my spiritual journey, everything else can be taken away or is trivial or additional. Even psychedelics, beautiful, but I can still feel like progress spiritually without them. But meditation is really like my cornerstone. So I have a meditation practice, a daily one. Usually I'll do about 30 minutes to an hour in the morning, and then 30 minutes to an hour at night. First thing when I wake up, and last thing before I go to sleep, which I think is very important to point out, that those are very multiple times in our brain where we can really work with our consciousness, because it's fresh out of sleep or right before going into deep sleep. I feel like those are very important times to cultivate peace and awareness, because it's like kind of like putting on our armor for their day, right? When we wake up, of peace, of happiness, before going out and, being, in all sorts of situations. And at the end of the day, meditating is kind of like letting go of any baggage we picked up throughout the day. So those times very important, and I practice quite a variety of different types of meditation. It's kind of changed. I flow with it. Sometimes I do anapana, like breath meditation. Sometimes it's mantra, working with the mantra. Especially when I was working on some of these deity paintings, I work with a lot of mantras while I meditated. And sometimes it's metta, sometimes it's vipassana. So it changes. I'll usually go a few months practicing a certain one, and then I'll change to another one once feel like my soul is calling me to it. I know that there is value in sticking with one and going really deep into it, but I like to flow, you know. I wouldn't want to change probably the type of meditation throughout the same meditation like practice, like while I'm sitting down, like going from one to another, you know. But like over time, like every
Yeah.
few months, kind of switch.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have that like intuitive guidance to know what you need in the moment and to just go
Hmm.
with that. Yeah. Sometimes you don't need anything, but I
Yeah.
think it's good to know. It's like, I don't know. It's good to tap into the Sat Guru, and that will direct one outwardly to do whatever they need to do. I think we all have that as human beings. I believe we all do. It's just a matter if one can tap into that internal compass, you know?
Is there?
Yeah. It's like almost like a guardian angel in a way, you know? It's like a something that uses us. Like sometimes I feel like I'm just a instrument, like I'm just a vehicle. I actually said this today to myself, like I'm just a vehicle for the divine. You know, this body here, like everything that you see on the screen, this is just like this is just the meat suit that's working. It's an energy vehicle. You know, that's just it's a something that something else from the outside, the inside of me, whatever you want to call it, is using to work its energy out in a way. That's how I feel sometimes. And I think we all are. It's just a matter if you can tap into that. And then once you can tap into that, that taps into you. And it's like this symbiotic relationship that you can tap into. You can call it God, you can call it source, infinite consciousness, man, whatever you want to call it. But it's there. And I think it's within every single human being to do that, to tap into that God energy, you know? You know what I'm saying? You definitely know what
Absolutely.
I'm
I know what you're saying.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. And then, like I said before, like in the psychedelic experiences, you don't lose that. Well, whatever that is that one can tap into, you don't lose that either. Like that relationship with the divine, that's with you forever in this lifetime, and maybe in the next one as well, and ones after that. Who knows? But I believe that it's like this is a relationship that is like it's it's forever, man. Once you tap into the guru don't leave you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that deep remembrance.
Yeah, it's deep. It's very deep. It's a deep
Yeah.
remembrance for sure. It may sound crazy to somebody that doesn't know any better, but I think to people that do know better, they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, it makes sense." Um, I don't know. That's
I love the saying that we're like God with amnesia. You know, like
mm-hmm.
we're constantly, in a way. I feel like the process of awakening is we're caught in the cosmic game. We're completely asleep to that remembrance, and then we start waking up by opening our eyes a little bit and closing them
Yeah,
again, and then eventually we just like get to a point where we're just like get to a point where we just keep them open. And I feel like these spiritual experiences are that those moments of us opening our eyes a little bit, and over time they get progressively more and more until it turns into just a constant remembrance at every moment throughout
mm-hmm.
all moments of life, as simple as walking, as just being here, breathing, sitting, and remembering that state of pure consciousness, that perfection of it all,
Yeah,
which I know it really sometimes is a little controversial to say the perfection of it all, and that in a way there is a state of awareness where it's all perfect, even the darkness, the yin and the yang. Um, but there is a state where we see past those dualities and we see that it's all happening through divine grace. And
mm-hmm.
of course, to not do our part to increase that darkness or increase that whatever is happening that isn't positive in the world, but also to not be to remain equanimous, to not let it affect our inner being, to
Yeah,
make that separation of this game happening outside. Well, it's kind of like inside, outside, everywhere. but cultivating that place where our inner awareness stays peaceful.
mm-hmm. Well said. Yeah, Yep. It's that inner equanimity.
Yes.
Yeah. And like you said, it's about reaching an awareness of the perfection because it's always
Mhm.
perfected, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Like you said, there's a lot of darkness in the world, but it's about taking that step back and realizing that it's all literally, it is all perfect. And obviously easier to say now when I'm in my comfortable house and we're just chilling,
Yeah,
and we're not in a dark situation, but
for
at the end
sure.
of the day, truly, it really is it really is all perfect. And
Yeah,
if you can take that into your life and approach your life with that, I guess that's the goal. That's enlightenment. I guess if you want to
yeah,
try and describe it, it seems like to me it's to really, no matter what happens in the movie screen of life, whatever phenomena may pop up, be okay with it. Be at a state of, like you said, equanimity, a state of just, not resisting, not desiring, just like a state of just simply just witnessing it like a movie as much as we can.
mhm.
And then that negates suffering.
Yeah,
And we're all going
exactly.
through it, we're all suffering. That's the first rule, that's the first tenet of Buddhism, you know? So I find that is the mindset, it seems to be, of this so-called awakening enlightenment. It's like whatever happens in my life, my karma as Gary, in your karma, it's like just let it happen. And then thus we don't build karma for the future, and thus we escape samsara, reach nirvana, blah blah blah. We just reach a state of less suffering. And that's what it seems like it's all about. Um, but yeah, that's why we have art like yours to remind us of that equanimity state, that state of divine grace at all times, because we need that reminder. Throughout the darkness, we need the light. And people like you and whatever else it may be, a podcast is there to remind you that you are light at all times, no matter how dark, no matter how much pain there is, no matter how much chaos there is. There's always that light, that little glimmer of light that's within you. And that's it, man. What more do you want? I'm not there. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm not 100% at that state yet, but I know it's cool to know that it's an ideal. It's an ideal that I hold, that I know it's possible through people like, saints, Maharaji, the saints that are out there that seem to be on this wavelength. Use them
Yes.
as an example to know that they're human just like us. It seems like they made it, per se, and that you can make it as well. And that seems to be the goal of life. If there is a goal of life, it's to be at complete peace and enjoy this thing. Contrary to
Yeah.
popular belief, I believe we're supposed to enjoy this thing. This is supposed to be heaven, right? So
Well
cultivate
said.
that kingdom of heaven within, and then we can build the kingdom of heaven without. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you said it perfectly. And that's really one of the most determining factors of how our spiritual progress is if we can go through a really stressful, difficult situation and yet maintain that peace. And the more we practice, the more that's gradually going to come.
Hmm.
And something I've also found that's a little interesting little thing is I believe that when we ask someone what they think of the world, it's a big reflection of how their inner world is.
Yeah.
Because just a big mirror. So, an enlightened being or a very spiritual person, if you ask them what they think of the world, they'll say, yeah, that it's heaven, that it's perfect, that it's beautiful, that, versus of someone that's in deep suffering, deep forgetfulness. They'll say the world's horrible, that, all those things. And of course, I fully acknowledge that there's people in very, very difficult situations where that's, more difficult. But I feel like sometimes those difficult situations can be almost like pushing us to awaken even faster in a way, because if everything's perfect and well and easy, then and we're still in a state of forgetfulness, we might just want to stay like that because there's no pressures, there's no motivations, versus a situation that is very difficult. It can either like, put so much pressure to us to break into awakening in a way.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. that's what has been described over millennia. It's that our suffering is used literally as a catalyst for us to wake up. It's because we're the ones that do the suffering. Like, we create the suffering ourselves. I know that may seem a little weird to say, to somebody that's actually really going through it right now, but from our karma, like, we've built up our suffering because we're not aligned to that inner guide over lifetimes, and we've built up this darkness essentially within us. And then until we get the message that there's another way than living on the hamster wheel that we built up, until we change our ways and reorient our ways to God, one may say, then that's when we create the kingdom of heaven. Like, the darkness is used literally. It's like our life collectively is going to be dark. It's going to be shitty until we get the message. That's what it's for. The darkness is essentially like a giant message. It's like, you monkeys haven't got it yet. You guys haven't got the message yet. So we're just going to keep going through it until we get it. Because I do fully believe, and this may seem over idealistic, but I do fully believe that if we're all on that wavelength, which it may seem not even fathomable to be all on that wavelength, billions of people all aligned to this inner guru that we've been talking about. If we are all aligned on that, which I don't even think the world would look like how it looks right now, it would be so unrecognizable. But let's talk hypothetical. If we are all aligned on that, then there wouldn't be any suffering. There wouldn't be, like, I do believe if there's an individual way to orient yourself, right, that we've been talking about, individual way to align yourself with the divine, however you want to call it, then I do fully believe that there is that essence for all of us. And if that essence leads me to a state of less suffering, then I would guess that would lead to a state of less suffering on the collective as well, which would essentially lead to this said kingdom of heaven. So I think summing that up is that essentially, yeah, we're going to keep suffering and keep going through it over generation and generation and generation, and humanity's going to keep living in the darkness until we wise up and smarten up and really tap into whatever this thing is that we're talking about. So it is a giant catalyst. It really is. And I would never say that to somebody that, like, has cancer. I wouldn't say that to their face, like, hey man, maybe you should have wised up, because it's not like that either. It's like, it's over lifetimes, and it's just like, it's a collective thing. It's I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not wise enough to really convey it in that way, like why there is so much suffering and like why certain things happen to certain people. But I do believe that it's because we're just at a collective level, we're just not aligned. Like, why we have so much just messiness in the world at a level that we can see now with the internet, and I do believe it's because that we're not aligned to God, essentially. And yeah, until we get the message. I think we're getting the message, though. I think what's happening right now in humanity is we're collectively reaping our karma. This is kind of like a time, I like to say, where humanity is going through puberty. It's kind of messy. We're feeling a lot of things we never felt before, but we're growing up and, like, we're maturing into the being that we're supposed to be. But like I said, it's a little messy. It's a little rocky, just like puberty kind of is for a human being. It's like, what's going on, right? So I think that's kind of what's happening right now, is we're collectively reaping our karma, which is, like, essentially, like, we're going through a lot of shit, I guess, and we're able to witness that now with the internet too. The advent of the internet allows us to see it all over the world, all of the collective suffering, and it's just like, ooh, just we're not feeling good from that. It's not right? We know something's off. So I think what's happening is, this is like a new renaissance. Literally, as we're speaking right now, this is kind of like the awakening of humanity, and we're awakening to free ourselves and liberate ourselves into the state that we were supposed to be. Yeah, you feel that? Do you think so? Like, do you think there's ever going to be Go ahead, sorry.
I think the consciousness is for sure rising, and even though we can't control necessarily, I mean, maybe some people can, but to a very intense degree, what's happening outside of us, we can cultivate what's happening within us, cultivate peace, and then ask ourselves, what can I do to raise the consciousness? What is my gift? What am I, like, what brings me joy and can bring others joy to remember that divinity, to remember that peace? And then to do that, to dedicate our lives to doing that out of service, out of love. And the more, it's ironic, like I feel like the more we focus on trying to make others happy, to bring others peace, not happy as in pleasure, because definitely want to make a distinguish, because it's different to try to please people than to make people truly happy and peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And to focus on trying to make people happy and peaceful. And that, ironically, I have found in my journey has brought me the most happiness. It brings us the most happiness when we really do it out of love and service. So taking time to meditate and ask ourselves, okay, like, how can I do that? How can I raise the collective consciousness? How can I be of service? How can I bring peace to others? And I truly feel that through grace, the universe, the cosmos, God will help us do that and sustain us and make sure we're taken care of if we're really doing it out of genuine love and care for others.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. And I would extend on that and say, we do it with a genuine love and care for ourselves first. Like literally, you take care of yourself. And then thus, that just reverberates out to others. It's like you take care of yourself and then you take care of yourself, you know, as above, so below.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah, the greatest thing is we can do is be selfishly selfless, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, work on yourself with a capital S, and then work on yourself. That works on yourself with a lowercase s. You know, it goes back and forth.
Yes, doing both, and that involves like cultivating, like peace and being healthy, so we can serve the world. So, taking time to exercise, to eat right, to meditate, to do all those things that make our being feel well, so we can go out there and then help others. So it's about doing both, because definitely I'm not trying to say that we should neglect our own being to please others. I think that's a very different situation of like neglecting ourselves and pleasing, and ultimately it's just not gonna bring neither the other people nor us deep peace and awakening, but instead to cultivate happiness and peace and taking care of ourselves and doing the same to others. Then that's going to lead to positivity in all directions.
Yeah, exactly. Positivity in all directions. I like that.
Yeah.
It's true though. And there's no other way. At the end of the day, there's really no other way to happiness, if you want to call it happiness, peace, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's any other way to find that within oneself. You can try and find it in materialism. You can try and find it in, in getting some attention. You try and find it in the outside world, but it's always going to lead back to a sense of suffering, because all of that stuff is temporary. But the so-called peace that's within, that's forever. That doesn't vanish. It may seem like moments where it vanishes, but one can always have that remembrance and always come back to that peace that's forever ingrained in our soul, and there's no other way. Yeah.
And I think spreading this information of motivating people, inspiring people to cultivate that is so important. And thank you so much for doing this podcast and informing people, getting all these, people to talk about these subjects, because it's really hopefully creating an impact on the listeners to, all right, like, can I take a moment of silence with myself to feel that peace or even that chaos within and calm it down? And then how can I share that peace I've cultivated, even if it was just a little bit today, by smiling to that stranger down the street, Exactly. Big change.
Yep. A little bit goes a long way, for sure. Yeah, other than that, I think I don't have much else to say. I think that's a good note to wrap this thing up at. Do you have any last words for the world? Anything you want to say?
Like, everybody be happy and well, free from suffering. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I thank you for coming on. I thank you for showing us your artwork, sharing your wisdom, sharing your energy. I'll link everything down in the description for anybody that has listened this long. But yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Appreciate your energy, and peace out. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.